Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Danielle here, and in today's video, I'm going to tell you about why I chose to live in Thailand for 2.5 years. So a little background about me. I am American. I'm from New Jersey originally, but I've also lived in Washington, D.C. and Chicago. I studied abroad when I was in college in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, Santiago, Chile as well, and also worked in Seoul, South Korea for a year. But despite all those places I've been, I still loved living in Chiang Mai, Thailand. That's a city in the north of Thailand. It's the second largest city in the country of Thailand, and I found myself there for 2.5 years. So many people ask me questions about why did I live there? You know, what's special about Thailand and Chiang Mai? So I thought, why not make a video explaining my reasons? And honestly, I kind of wish I were there still right now, but I'll get into it. So first thing I'll say is the weather. I really like warm weather. I've lived in many places that have a very distinct winter season. I really didn't miss winter at all while I was living in Thailand. Occasionally I missed fall though. That kind of surprised me. Sometimes I wanted to just like buy some sweaters and wear some sweaters, but otherwise I didn't miss the cold weather at all. I just missed shopping for it. But I really do like warm weather. I like knowing that pretty much any day of the year I can go out in shorts and sandals and t-shirts and just enjoy myself. It can get very hot though, especially in like March and April, when you're at like the height of the dry season. So if you're not into that, get out of there in those months. The rest of the year, you'll get some rain starting in later April and May. That's when the rainy season starts. But really when it rains most of the time, it'll rain for like an hour or two and the rest of the day will be really nice. And they generally have better air quality during the rainy season because the rain cleans out the atmosphere. Any dust or pollution or whatever that's sitting in the sky just gets cleared out by the rain, especially in the north of Thailand. So I generally really liked the weather there. Also, huge deal. A huge factor for me was the cost of living. I think that's a huge factor for a lot of people. So what I found in Chiang Mai, which is true for lots of parts of the country, is that you can get a pretty high quality of life at a very affordable price. So I was living in an apartment building with a pool and a gym in it, and it was new. It's only a few years old. And I was paying between like $500 and $700 a month, depending on the unit. So the smallest unit, which is where I lived first, that was around $515 a month. And then I later moved into the largest unit with the best view in the building, and that one was around $700 to $750 a month. I'm giving a little bit of a range because depending on the length of your lease, the price varies. If your lease is longer, say 1 year, you'll pay a little bit less money than if you have a shorter lease. And so depending on your lease length, the price will vary a bit. These are all pre-pandemic prices. So I imagine that the prices now are even cheaper. Now, some people would argue, oh, $500, $700, that sounds like quite a bit of money. So remember, this building was new. It has a pool and a gym in it. It has an awesome location. It was in the Niman neighborhood of Chiang Mai, which is a neighborhood that, yes, it has a lot of locals and local places, but it has a lot of places that appeal to expats. So it would be really easy for me to get great Thai food or really great like American style food as well in that neighborhood. I could also walk to 2 different malls within like 10 or 15 minutes of the apartment, and actually 3 really good grocery stores were within walking distance as well. So, I mean, I didn't need a car or a motorbike to get by in this neighborhood. But if I ever did want to go to another neighborhood, it was really easy for me to just get a Grab, which is like their Uber over there. and just take it wherever I needed to go. So yeah, cost of living, great. Those are rent examples, but like if you want to buy Western groceries and you go to a Western grocery store or a grocery store that has a lot of Western food, like Rimping is one or Tops is another, you're gonna pay similar prices to what you might find in the West. A lot of people would say it's expensive. I would say the pricing is similar to what you spend in the West. At least for me, that's how it worked out. If you go to local markets, then you're gonna pay much cheaper prices. You'll be able to get local produce. If you want anything that comes from overseas though, you're gonna have to go to one of like the bigger grocery stores. In general, I kind of felt like living in Thailand was like, the whole country was like a dollar store to me. And I don't mean that in a rude way. I mean it in like, it was really easy to find things you could want for like 30 baht, and 30 baht is like $1 US about. So for most things that I needed, my cost of like the cost of those things was much lower in Thailand than what I would spend in the United States. And in general, the society did not feel as like consumer driven as the US is. So I tended to just buy a lot less stuff while I was living there. So in general, the prices were lower and I didn't feel compelled to buy as much while I was there. Going back to the rent, by the way, you can spend far less than I did on rent. I have a friend who lived by Chiang Mai University, which, you know, has a lot of really good, nice, low-cost options. So he rents a room there for about $100 US a month, 3,000 baht. So he gets a room with a bathroom, and it's a good sized room with a small living area in it. There's no kitchen, but like I said, a good sized room with a bathroom for about $100 US. Another friend of mine lives in the same neighborhood I lived in, Niman, and he pays, I think, around $250 to $300 a month for his apartment. And he has it's all one room, it's a studio. So big room for his bed, a living area, a desk area. He has a bathroom and a kitchen. There's no pool or gym in the building. The building is much older than the building I lived in, but the neighborhood is the same. It was like a 5-minute walk from my apartment to his apartment. So if you want the location and you don't mind an older building and you don't mind not having those extra amenities, you'll still get a really affordable price in the neighborhood as long as you look around. Okay, so cost of living's really good. Also, the livability was really great there. I've never lived in a place that was so easy to live in as Chiang Mai. So like I was saying before, I could walk to pretty much everything that I needed in my neighborhood. Other neighborhoods, you would need a motorbike or a car for sure. Like if I ever go back and want to get a house, I'd probably have to be a little bit outside the center of the city. And then in that case, I'd need a car or a motorbike to get to grocery stores, most restaurants, things like that. But I could, for the price I was paying for one of those apartments in the nice new building in Niman neighborhood, I could get an entire house, like a 3-bedroom house at that price, maybe even less. So still super affordable, very livable. Like, I'm not kidding, like anything I ever needed, whether it was made locally in Thailand or coming from abroad, I could get it. I could find somewhere in the city that had it, and if I couldn't, then I could just order it online and it would get delivered. I never had problems finding anything I could possibly want or need living in Chiang Mai. Also, the people in Thailand are really great. They call it the land of smiles. So super friendly people, very easygoing locals. The first time I went to Chiang Mai, I was traveling throughout Southeast Asia, and I started my trip actually in Bangkok. Then I visited some other countries in Southeast Asia, and then 3 months into the trip, I went from Yangon in Myanmar to Chiang Mai, Thailand. And as soon as I got to Chiang Mai, I was like, I feel like I can just do whatever I want here. So if I want to go out and have a busy day and see a bunch of things, I can do that. If I just want to like lay around all day and take it easy, I can do that. And I guess it's true, like most other places, that's a way you could live your life. But there was something different about Thailand and Chiang Mai in particular, where I really felt like you could just live life on your own terms without any judgment. And so I just really liked that about the place. And like if I wanted to be busy, I could be busy. There's plenty to do to keep me busy. If I didn't want to do anything, that was perfectly fine as well. And the locals are just super easygoing, very kind, very easy to work with. Like if you have a project you want to get done, you need some help, you know, they're just, if you can pay them, they'll help you. You know, they're very like accommodating in that way. So I just felt like it was the people made it such an easy place to live. And I also felt like they were really smart about how they worked with expats and people visiting their country, which was, they saw, to me it came across this way, that they saw a business opportunity in us being there. So it's like, okay, if these people want to live here, cool, I can offer products or services to them that they want or that they need to be able to live well here. And I could make a really good income off of that because the expats tend to have money to spend. And they just seem to be smart about like, I can offer this price for my product, which is a cheap price by Western standards, but an expensive price by Thai standards. So, you know, we both end up winning, where I feel like as an expat, I'm getting a deal, and they feel like they're making a killing off of me compared to what they would get from, say, most of the local Thai people. And so it just seemed to be a win-win. I thought they were really smart about how they worked with us, you know, to be able to make it mutually beneficial for the both of us. Visas now, living in Thailand, you will need a visa. So I did some education visas. I did it twice to be able to stay in the country for 6 months to a year at a time without having to leave the country. And it was no problem for me to get these education visas, but you do have to go to the local immigration office every 90 days to get that checked. Your school will give you the paperwork. And then the rest of the time I just had tourist visas. And for me, I had no problems at all. In general, how it seems to work is if you can afford your visa and you have the bank statements to back up that you can afford to live there, they seem pretty okay with giving you visas, at least in my experience. Now, if you don't have the finances to show that you can sustain living there for the time that you want to be there, then I think you might have some problems. I don't know if they also treat people from different countries differently depending on the wealth of that country. I can't say because it's not my personal experience, but what I would say is for me, it was a non-issue. Now, I do know that, say, in the year before the pandemic started, there was talk about really tightening up these things, but I wonder if now that we've had the pandemic and the country has been closed for a long time and a lot of the locals are suffering, you know, financially because there hasn't been as much economic activity with the like very greatly reduced amount of tourism. I wonder if they're going to be super strict with their visas or if they might keep that loose for a while so that the country can more easily bounce back economically. I don't know for sure, it's just something that I wonder. So there you have it. Those were my reasons for living in Thailand for the amount of time that I did and why I might go back when I'm able to. I'm curious though to hear from you. Have you lived in Thailand before? What were your reasons? You can leave those in the comments. Or if you're thinking about going there, Why are you thinking of going? What are your reasons? And do you have any questions about going there and what it might be like? You can leave those in the comments as well. If you'd like to see more videos from me, you can like this and subscribe to the channel to get notified when I post more. The next video I'll be posting will be about the different kinds of expat groups that I noticed while I was living there for the 2.5 years that I was there. So if you're curious to see that, come for the next video and I'll see you there. Have a good one.